You might want to explain to people what's going on.
Good evening, everyone. We will open this council budget workshop for Monday, June 17th, and roll call shows that all councilors but Councilor Osher are present in the room. Councilor Osher is watching via the live stream, and she is going to text comments or questions in. So if you see Sophie going for her phone, that's what she's doing. We will move on to the final review of FY 2020 municipal budget.
Why, hello.
Hello.
This is truly the final time I think we're going to meet on this before the scheduled adoption, which is next Monday night at 7 o'clock. Last week we went through the budget in quite a bit of detail at a public hearing that we had a few taxpayers speak at. I did not make any changes to our expense budget, so it is exactly what was presented last week. The change I did make to material that you have is reflecting the newly adopted state budget. So there is an increase of $239,315 in expected revenue sharing. There is an increase of $143,060 in homestead. It also shows a reduction in the taxable valuation from 453 million down to 448 million, and that is simply the shift of the increased homestead reimbursement, or the increased homestead exemption amount that we are projecting. So the increased homestead revenue is offset by the decrease in valuation. That is a wash. I sent out an email. I emailed a memo to council over the weekend. Did everybody have a chance to read it? You don't need me to go through it, do you? Okay. Oh yeah.
One thing, I'm sorry. The second point where it talks about the decrease in the tax bill for eligible taxpayers, I think the numbers are wrong. 540 last year, this is 75. That be reversed.
This represents a $135,000 decrease in the annual tax bill for eligible taxpayers, to give you the example, or to tell you, it was 540 last year to 675 this year. That's the decrease. So the reason that we're here is it's my job to put together the orders that council will eventually consider and either adopt as provided or adopt as amended, that rolls the budget into next year and gives me the authority to expend and collect funds as well as to commit taxes. So we wanted to just make sure that you had the opportunity to talk about what you wanted to happen with that $239,315, because that's a council decision. That is not a Sophie decision. I know, crazy.
So does anyone want to throw any ideas out there?
I would be happy to start the discussion. I continue to feel that the vast majority of the increased revenue should be used for reduction in taxes. I do recognize that we have gone into our reserves in recent years fairly heavily in order to keep the tax rate from increasing even further. So I would propose somewhat of a balance. I would like to see us put $50,000 back into reserves out of that 30, whatever it is, and the rest used for reduction in taxes. Just to go one step further, I would not propose any change in the expenditure budget.
Can I just clarify one thing?
Mhm.
When you say 50,000 back into reserves, you're saying a decrease, go from 400,000 to 350,000 in undesignated, in the draw on undesignated
Correct.
fund. Okay, good.
Just to cause trouble, what would 300,000 look like to the tax if we reduced it to 300,000?
So, in your packet,
2679.
every I put in your packet that every $10,000
2 cents.
is worth 2 cents. So if you pulled another 50 out, that would be another
10 cents.
11 cents. Right?
11?
Yeah, because it's 2 round with a with a tail.
Okay.
It's 2 with a tail.
2668 is 50,000. 300,000. I'm very rarely right about math, but I feel solid about this. Only because Sophie gave us. Anyone else have any comments or thoughts?
I'm also with Thomas, but I just want to kind of point out that for Mr. Smith, who wrote into us, as much as I appreciate that he spoke nicely of how we were handling this and what our thoughts were and what his thoughts were, I still I'm kind of over on with Tom. It's about just some reduction would be perfectly fine, and if it's kind of like set up to be that model, then I'm good with that also. So.
I have a question too. This is not a question. So Sophie, the memorandum that I have in front of me, the way things stand right now with the state budget approved, everything's ready to go. Are we looking at a projected mill rate of 26.57 right now? Will it go down?
So if you allocated, if you didn't change anything, you kept the draw on fund balance at 400,000.
Right.
No change to the expense budget. Just the only changes in the budget were the change for homestead and the additional revenue sharing. The projection is 26.57. Now,
Okay.
normally, that number is not quite so not round. We
Right.
normally do 5s and 0s. We don't have to. We can do, but when it is not quite so round in front of you, it also gives the assessor a little bit more wiggle room. So I just want you to understand that 26.57 might end up being 26.59, might end up being 26.55.
Right. Okay. But it's not going to be 27.
So I work for you. If the message I get is that you're looking to have this, then when we put our overlay in, we will do the overlay to the nearest amount that to try to get the mill rate that you're asking for. And I would be very concerned to drop overlay much more, which is why I said it might be a couple pennies more if we lose any value, simply because I would not be comfortable with a mill rate any lower than 72.
Okay.
So
In an overlay, any lower than 72. Mill rate lower than 72 would be quite nice.
I didn't quite understand that.
I've got a couple, brief questions. So the projected revenue sharing for next year is supposed to also increase. Projected homestead next year and projected
revenue share next year aren't set in stone. It's just likely to be.
So it's the legislature adopts a budget that goes for 2 years. So the likelihood that we would see anything other than 3.75 would mean that something had to have happened down in Augusta, one way or the other. That is not usually something that they are going to monkey with in the middle of a biennium. I would be reasonably comfortable with thinking that we're going to get 3.75 next year. And I would be reasonably comfortable thinking that we're going to stay with a $25,000 homestead exemption at 70% reimbursement, which is what's here. I
guess I just want to make the point that it's not guaranteed, although it's
Not
very
guaranteed.
likely.
And I think the other piece to remember as we talk about money, as cash in the door, these are all projections that we're looking now thinking about what's coming in the next year. So if the economy heats up, there will be more money. If the economy slows down, we might not get exactly what we have projected. In Orono, at least in the 8 years I have been here, we have always used the forecasted revenue as our budgeted revenue.
Right.
And we haven't really gone too far in the hole yet.
But the sands can shift.
The sands can shift.
Only my point for folks who are trying to figure out what all of this means. So in principle, I agree completely with Tom. I think that 350 from undesignated funds should be our ceiling again. And I think that the reasons why we went above that were very clear. We were not getting what we needed from the state, and that was why we chose to go above our original maximum number. And I would like to see us, now that we are getting more from the state, to go back to that policy of maybe there is a lower ceiling on what we're willing to draw from that fund. But I think the goal of trying to decrease every year would be a good one for me. But for this year, bringing it back to 350 would be what I would want to see as well. Though that is how I feel, I would like it if you could talk a little bit about your discussion of the 6 cents for the overlay, just so that we can hear a little bit more about what might happen with our property values down the line.
So we use the overlay account to fund our abatements out of, and also to fund our legal expenses, technical expenses related to abatements. We've decided, as we've talked about in other departments, instead of budgeting on an annual basis for the outlier or for the unknown, we instead budget based on what would happen on a daily basis in the department. And so there is no other place to take those legal fees, those technical fees from. We have an abatement pending right now. We just got notice they're appealing the decision to the local board of assessment review. It is $170,000 of taxes that they are requesting be abated. Now, we think we've got a great defense. We think that the number is a good number. Once the local board of assessment review gets done with it, if they agree with us, which there is no guarantee they will, but if they do, we then will likely end up at the state board of assessment review. They are infamous for splitting the difference. So that's one reason why you don't do a lot of conversation to try to get to the middle, because if you're moving and the other party isn't, the middle gets higher, right? So even at 50%, which is a reasonable expectation, that is a lot of money. So even if we said we're not going to fund that size abatement out of overlay, we're just going to fund the legal expenses out of overlay, we start looking at every time the Board of Assessment Review meets, because of the structure here and technical needs, we have an attorney that shepherds the board through its decision-making to make sure it's legal. A Board of Assessment review at the local level usually costs me about $1,200 or $1,500 for one. We're now going to be implementing new values. People have figured that out. We're actually rolling some in on a neighborhood basis now because they were so far out of the norm. I would expect to see activity and abatements requests increase. At the end of the day, whether we approve it through by increasing overlay or we approve it on a case-by-case basis where I come to council and ask you for a direct draw from funds, that is totally up to what you want. The expenses will be the expenses, and there won't be a whole lot that we can do to mitigate them. But it would be a choice for council of kind of like we don't budget the department on the unknown. Maybe you don't want to budget the overlay on the unknown, and that's perfectly fine. I just don't think I'm doing my job if I don't put it in front of you so you're aware.
So it does. So it leaves us with the opportunity to pass as much of the tax relief on as possible to residents, knowing that we may or may not have to come up with extra money depending on what unknowns are out there with property values.
And that happens throughout the budget. If I could share Lori's text with folks. Over the years that the state reduced revenue sharing, the town of Orono made up shortfalls by routinely allocating more than $350,000 from undesignated fund balance. I propose that all of the $239,315 go to reimburse the undesignated fund balance. So that is her.
Okay. I thought I read today, and I know you don't have authority over it, but I thought I read today that there was additional school funding. Do you know if the school will be, have you heard anything?
I have not heard anything, and I don't know whether or not those are new funds or extra funds. I do know that, or I believe I know, I could be wrong, that one of the articles on the district-wide meeting gives the school board the ability to decide what to do with that money. Is that, Tom, am I?
I remember from our meeting with the RSU directors that the chair did say, I believe, that if they received additional revenue, it would either go to their reserve or reduce the municipal requirement. It would not go to additional expenditure. I think I'm quoting him correctly.
I believe you are.
Sophie, just another point in terms of unknown information. We've talked about the fact that our total assessed value could increase.
Yep.
And that would be good news. What you were just talking about is kind of the bad news part, and I just want to make sure that there is also that good news possibility.
So I think, when we talked about, there's kind of like short term and medium term, Tom. The medium term is in FY21 when we're able to commit taxes with the new value. We think that there might be value out there that we have not kept up with. That some people, the way it usually goes, a percentage will go down in value because they've been overassessed. Percentage will stay the same, and a percent will go up. And so based on what Mike is seeing right now, he's thinking that there might be some additional to gain, which would be great. The short term is just, and we've done this before. We've had conversations where I say, I haven't put this money in here, but if this X happens, I might need to come back to you for money out of a reserve or whatever. And I don't, as long as you're aware when you are making the budget and giving me direction of what the unknowns are, I think that works.
I like what Tom proposed.
So why don't I make that as a motion? Would that move us in the right direction? So
I second that.
I would propose that the expenditure budget remain the same. That we use only $350,000 of reserves for revenue in our budget, and that so that would mean that the additional revenue would go to tax reduction.
So I'm going to show all of the additional revenue, the decrease of value, and a decrease of $50,000 from the undesignated fund.
Correct.
Second.
We'll do a show of hands. All those in favor? Yes, sir. And then maybe next year we can do another 50.
So I have just some other questions for you, just to make sure we're all on the same page, if that's all right. Fee schedule, I went through changes in the fee schedule. Was everybody okay with that? Okay.
I just wanted to, I had thought we talked a bit about the mailbox and post. And there
Yes,
was going to be some language change.
there is. I have to pull it out. I haven't had a chance to do that, but I will for next Monday.
I don't want Judy to think we're trying to make her pay for some mailboxes.
That would be like revenue.
I'm a little anxious about the schedule for the land. It sounded reasonable and it made sense, but it's going to require an upfront payment from a taxpayer, which they're not going to receive the direct benefit from right away, as I understand. You're going to buy this book of coupons.
You buy a coupon one at a time if you want. Yeah. So right now you have to come into the town office and buy your permit anyway. This will allow somebody, if they want to, they can come in and buy a book of coupons. But you can get one at a time.
I didn't hear that. That makes me feel better.
So the first upfront cost is going to be the sticker, and we'll do that on a calendar year basis to make it easier for the landfill attendant. It will be colorful if it's a certain color calendar year. Then you would buy a ticket for whether it's your free on, it's one ticket, or you can buy multiple tickets depending on how much you're going to bring in. The thing that we liked about that was the ticket, while it costs a certain amount of money today, if you bought like a book of tickets, if you won Powerball and decided you were going to come buy all your tickets at once, those, even if the council raised the fee for the ticket later, like it's $25 now and it's going to go to $30, your ticket is still good.
So,
For this year, Tom, we would prorate the sticker, $12.50.
okay, so help me understand the cost for the sticker. Why do we want to charge people for the initial sticker?
Because
I get them free in Greenville.
well, that's your choice. I mean, I think we're looking at trying to net out about the same total revenue in a year. And I think that's one of the ways that Rob did it. I don't know that it necessarily matters. What matters for Rob is that we have a sticker with numbers on it, so that when you come in and if you're bad, then all Rich has to do is write the numbers down and get it to Rob after that.
Is there a production cost for the sticker that's
There
part
is
of the
a production
equation?
cost. It's not $25 a sticker. It's probably closer to $1 a sticker. So I
Did
think
the price of the ticket go down? Is that why there's a permit cost?
No.
from the very beginning, I think Rob borrowed this design from another public works director. And I think that his thought was, it's a guaranteed $25 a year for everybody who's gonna use the landfill. And then after that, it's based on, use, how much you bring in. I think the amount that that sticker goes for is completely up to the town council. So I would,
Because I can foresee a scenario where I don't need a sticker or a ticket till, say, October.
Mhm.
And then I go in to buy the sticker. Go in to get the sticker and the ticket. And so then I've lost 10 months of the year, probably.
But if we didn't have the stickers, then your ticket would be more expensive anyway, right?
when we calibrated it, the fees, the $25, we took how many tickets it would take to make an average person using the landfill. And we took those tickets plus the 25 to get us to approximately the same revenue that we
That
have.
25 has to go somewhere,
So
right?
the additional revenue that you see in the budget is actually calculated from commercial waste, because that there are significant increases on the commercial side. It's $250 for a commercial sticker and I think $50 for a ticket. And the reason for that, and I think Rob touched on it, is in adopting that, you're kind of taking the philosophical stance that the landfill is for our residents and it's for individually generated construction, demolition, debris, and transfer of residential items. Right now, we take houses and it is filling up the landfill. We've got people who have businesses where they go around and collect trash, not trash, but debris, and bring it into the landfill. They're charging folks for it. They're bringing it in. It does not cost them as much as if they went up the road to another construction, demolition, debris landfill. So, that's the part of the issue that we have in this particular fee structure, is trying to separate residential use from commercial use in hopes that we can encourage people to reuse, reduce, recycle, pull their materials apart so that metal can go in the metal pile because that's free, versus taking your whole mattress and throwing it in the landfill.
I think the sticker actually works to the benefit of the resident, because so how much is one ticket? Or
$5.
$25. So say in the scenario that Cindy described, if she came in October and she did not have to buy a permit, if we took that part of the situation away and her ticket had to cost $50, maybe that's the only time she uses the landfill, but then maybe she comes back in November and then she has another $50 ticket. Whereas if she had paid a $25 permit fee and bought a $25 ticket, when she comes back in November, she buys a $25 ticket. So that way it costs her total $75 for the year to use the landfill twice instead of $100 to use the landfill twice. So you save money, right? I think that would make sense.
How difficult would it be to buy a sticker that is dated, that lasts a year? Like in October, I buy a sticker and it lasts until next October. Would that be a complex?
So the part that gets difficult, Cheryl, is when cars are going in and out, that looking at the sticker is a quick thing. It's kind of like when you go to your to get your car inspected. If you notice, the year is the same on all of them, and it's the color. That color shows up.
But if I went to get my car inspected in October, it would run until the next October. It wouldn't be like it'd be up in December, right?
Yep.
So would that be difficult? to do with the technology that we have today?
I don't know that it would be difficult. I think, I don't know. I truly,
Well, just trying to,
I-
ameliorate the situation, because I hear Cindy too. Like if I go in and buy, I only have one dump run. I'm not going to be back in November. I'm not going to be back in December. And then I've got another dump run in January of the next year. And I've already paid $25 for 2 months.
So, you could look at that two ways. We have some people that do all their clearing out in the fall, and that's when I personally give my next door neighbor all of the stuff I want to go in the fall of each year. We do it as part of going back to school. So, I think part of that is a choice. I think the other piece, though, that you might think about is running the sticker a little bit more like we run excise tax, which says if you come in to re-register your car and you're on the last 4 months of the year, you pay half excise. So you might think about saying, if you get to a certain point, you will prorate the price. I think keeping the stickers all at the same time, and it also makes it easier for folks downstairs when they've got people lined up to simply sell a ticket as opposed to making sure they get the dates down right.
The fee schedule would change if we're prorating. So that would have to be, people would have to know that was going to happen.
So we know that for this year, it's all going to start in July, right? July 1, it's going to start. We are still going to honor, and we will continue to honor old permits, right? I mean, we took an old permit that was 15 years old a while ago out at the landfill. So we will continue to honor the old permits, and then we'll transition people over to the new. I would think that for this year, perhaps the thing to do is to prorate the ticket, the sticker, to $12.50. It's halfway through the year. That also gives council an opportunity to think about how, before we get to January, how it wants to deal with the sticker moving forward. Is that a good
That's good.
compromise?
Just a real quick question about logistics on this whole thing. You get the sticker and you put it in your vehicle, correct?
Yep.
Or is there a way you can put it on something temporarily? Because I have a Subaru Legacy. I'd like to take a little bit more than a crock pot at a time to the landfill. You know, so if I borrow a truck, you know what I mean? If someone were to borrow a vehicle, I'm not saying get a U-Haul, but you know what I mean? So is that something, that's a way they could be worked around?
I think so.
Legit, right?
I know that I don't think Tom and I were using the same free landfill. Mine was outside of Greenville. But with that one, when you got your sticker, we just had ours on a piece of like cardboard that we stuck up in the windshield because we didn't know what truck we were going to take.
My truck, I'll have a sticker on it.
So I have, for 2019, we're going to prorate the sticker to $12.50, and we're going to have further discussion.
Correct.
Yeah.
Good.
And we might come back to you and say, our wonderful idea to make things easier for people is actually causing problems, and we need to rethink the whole thing. You never know.
Was this in the Observer or anything?
Yes, I think
It
it
was,
was. It's
okay.
been it's on the website, and we're rolling it out. People who went into the landfill in the last, I think it was ready last weekend, started getting flyers about
Notices
the
about
fact that we're talking about a proposed change.
Okay, great.
So anything else with the fee schedule? I've got mailboxes and landfill stickers.
All set.
Good, okay. We already talked about the town projected revenue and expense budgets. WPCF, expense and projected revenue budgets, you're okay with the 40 cent increase? Okay,
So,
yeah,
to say that we talked for quite a while about the option of the 40 cents in January versus 20 cents in July.
yes.
And I'm, excuse me, I supported the 40 cents in January and I continue to support it. However, it's going to be more difficult for me to look at a rate increase next year if we're putting it up 40 cents.
I don't think, putting it up 40 cents, Tom, I don't think that we will need a rate
Yeah.
increase. We might need to look a little bit at the capital budget for WPCF and talk with Joe a little bit about that. But we have a little over $1 million in sewer replacement reserve. We've got about $600,000 of projects coming up. I need Joe to look beyond the 5-year capital plan into a longer capital plan to see, is this a spike in the capital plan that then will go back to not very much for a little while? Or are we seeing an aging out that is causing us? That would be the only thing. Operations are fully funded at this point.
I'm fine.
And I don't know that we can get much more expensive in terms of electricity and, because we're budgeting right now for dual use. But I hear you.
Okay.
And the Orono Village District Development Plan and the proposed $0 assessment, you're all right with that?
That's easy.
That's, yeah.
So just a couple of other things that are not in front of you. We normally would have you approve an interest rate on unpaid taxes that is the maximum that the state allows. I'm assuming you are good with continuing that. I'm assuming you are good with us setting the rate that we pay for abatements when we have to refund on an abatement 4 percentage points lower than what the assessed the approved interest rate is. That is the lowest it can go per state law. I assume we're going to continue to do 2 tax payments, one in September and one in February. I'm also assuming that you are all right with me picking days out of not thin air, but picking the days. And I think as far as the budget goes, that pretty much sets the budget. On the 24th, we'll also have a brief presentation to the full council of the audit that we got. So that is on the agenda as well.
Works for me.
Managers report.
Managers report. We're
So,
cruising.
happy summer.
Yes.
We, unfortunately, right after we filled the pool and cleaned the pool, we discovered that there is a leak in the pool. Our biggest fear that it's at the main drain was not the case, so it's not the main drain, which is great. Unfortunately, it's under it's in the piping somewhere. I had a choice. We could have either delayed the opening of the pool, and which probably would have delayed it by a few weeks, and brought an excavator in and started pulling up the cement where we think the leak might be. We fixed one leak already as part of the getting ready to get the pool going. We think it's frost, so that's PVC pipe under the ground, and it had pushed the pipe up and smashed it into the cement, the patio, and crushed the top of the pipe. So we fixed that, which is good. Unfortunately, we're still losing water. So we fill it up. What that means, though, is the water is cold. It's coming out of the water district at, 52 degrees, and it takes time to warm up. So it also is a cost for us to fill the pool. So what we are thinking at this point is, let's run our summer and see if it continues to be a slow leak, that we can top the pool off every few days as opposed to filling it up pretty much constantly. I think that it should get warm enough for people to be able to enjoy it. But if the leak grows, gets any worse, then we're probably going to end up having to shut the pool down for a couple weeks and dig it up. But our thought was, let's see if we can get to fall and do that in the fall.
Do we have an estimate of how much we're losing, how quickly, and do we know where that's going? Simply, I mean, we've had an experience with water going where it shouldn't go earlier this year, and it's rather catastrophic.
So, no, the water's coming out the side of the hill. So we know right where it's going, and it's making its way down into the gully. So we're not expecting anything catastrophic there. When the pool drops 3/4 of an inch, no, I'm sorry, it's 2 inches, 2 inches. That was about 5,000 gallons. We are seeing more like a half an inch over a few days right now. So it's slowed down. We've got the big leak. So I just bring this to your attention because out of the blue, you might hear that I'm having to shut the pool down and do some construction, but I think it makes sense to try to get through the summer.
It was cold today.
Well, it's going to be cold anyway because it's 70 degrees, and to get 52 up to 70 is quite. Yeah. So the other news that I have is had a lengthy conversation with Boyd Smith at the Water District. As folks will remember, Councillor Perry and I went and begged for money. They really tried. And when they started talking about the depths that they went to try, they ended up being directed to the Public Utilities Commission. And I don't know why I didn't think about it with my old water hat on. PUC was adamant that if they did not have legal liability to pay a bill like that, if they came before the PUC later on for a rate increase, they would not get it. And that they opened themselves up for customers to take action against the water district. So I assured Boyd that we were appreciative that they considered it, that they went through the steps they went to, that they talked to their attorney, that they talked to the PUC, that they talked to the drinking water program. We are disappointed that they can't assist with that, and that we will continue to have the wonderful working relationship that we currently have with the district. So, unfortunately, that means that the entire Mill Street damage, repair, redo is going to have to come out of the downtown Transylvania district. So,
Which we really anticipated, to be honest.
it's always worth a try.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
So, I mean, I think those are the biggest, I think, pieces of news.
Are you done with the last negotiation on the?
So, police is all done. Fire, we right now are working on the MOU for wages and benefits for FY19. I have an estimated pay scale to go back to them. And we are scheduled to meet again on either July 11th or 12th. I am thinking that we're probably looking at more like a September or October roll-in of the budget, of the contract. But with the MOU that we've already talked about, that will protect the town for this year, it's known. What's in the budget is what we are agreeing to.
Anyone else have any questions or comments?
Just let you know that our fire chief got married over the weekend.
Did he really?
Yes, he did.
Congratulations. Great.
The move worked out in many ways.
It did. It did.
All right. Well, then I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor? All right. We are done.
Awesome.
Let me go turn off stuff and I'll be right back. budget.